What's up, Knights of the Cross? This is Steven, and bringing you another episode of Phantology. Ben and Josh are on the line with me today, and we're going to be reviewing another Dresden Files book. This is Book 5, Death Masks by Jim Butcher. What's up, guys?
It's nice to be with you, Steven. I notice we're matching today, so that's always a fun coincidence.
Yeah, we look way too similar if you're watching us on YouTube.
Well, I think that Ben and I might look a little bit more similar, but...
Yeah, you've got a little bit of a twin vibe going on there.
Yep.
And Ben, looks like you have a special guest for this episode.
Yeah, if you're watching me on YouTube, then you know that I have my 2-month-old son right here, guest starring. He's also holding my microphone conveniently in his baby carrier. So, this is just how we do it during quarantine season.
And he's probably absorbing all of this knowledge, right? He's going to grow up to be an avid reader.
He will. I will force him to be an avid reader. So he might hate me for it, but that's the price I pay.
Okay, well, thanks for getting off me today, guys. Excited to review another Dresden Files. We're kind of steaming through these. I'm not sure if we'll get through all of them by the time we have the release date for book 16, which is in July. But we'll do our best and we'll keep on going through them if not. So this book is an exciting book because it is the first time we see the Denarians, right? Denarians? I think it's Denarians, right?
I could never get a final answer on that, so I don't know.
It's based off of the denarii, like the name of the currency that Judas used to pay for, or Judas was paid for Christ, right? And I believe you say denarii.
We'll go with that. I don't know if that's right or not, but
all right, listeners, if you know any better, let us know on Discord. And that reminds me that if you like what we're putting out, check out Phantology on social media at Phantology Books. All of our links are available at www.phantologybooks.com. You can see everything we have there. And please hop on Discord. Tell us what we did wrong. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like. And if you're a big fan of the show, then even support us on Patreon and get some bonus content.
Oh, yeah. We release reactions that we have right away. Right after we finish the book, we try and go down and record our initial thoughts. So that's what you have to look forward to if you help us out on Patreon a little bit.
And there is a reaction video for Death Masks. It's my first one, so
yeah, you got to see those for sure if you're a fan of the series. And I'm trying to do a thing where after I finish editing, I compile my notes of all the questionable things that we might have said, and then I go back and do a quick little video clarifying mistakes and making sure that we actually sound like we know what we're talking about.
And the proceeds from Patreon will go to getting Ben a mic arm so that he doesn't have to use his son as a mic stand anymore.
Yeah, we definitely need that.
All proceeds will go directly back into the podcast, so you don't have to worry about that.
Or maybe to get some nicer microphones for in-person recording. If you listen to the Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, you know that we had some serious audio issues there. Luckily, we're all remote. We figured out remote recording pretty well. In-person continues to be a little tricky. But that's beside the point. Let's start talking about this book. So before we go too far into plot spoilers, just kind of high level, Ben, you barely finished the book. What did you think of book 5?
Yeah, so this was probably my favorite book so far in Dresden, which is good because book 4 was kind of a letdown for me. This is also, I'm kind of disappointed by the title though, because like all the previous titles had like punny names to them, like Summer Night with a K-N-I-G-H-T, or there's really clever names, but I didn't even know why this was named Death Masks. Even like at the end, I still didn't know why. So a little let down by the name, but everything else about this book was great.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't have a good response to that. I guess I agree. The name is a little out of left field. We're hoping for better on names.
Yeah. I think that this was the most memorable. This is the first one that I remember the most that we're going back and talking about. Like, I guess I remembered the first book really well because it introduced us to Harry, but I didn't really remember 2, 3, and 4 very well. I had to go back and do the rereads to remember a lot of that. But this book, I remember the Denarians being introduced. I remember a lot of the plot points. So I think that this definitely is a more memorable book.
Yeah, I definitely remember the scenes at Wrigley Field and at O'Hare Airport pretty vividly. And like Josh said, it has been a little bit since I've read the book. We both we try to brush up on the Tor rereads, so we're as current as possible. But I guess it's not quite possible for us to keep up with the demanding reading schedule and be 100% fresh and everything. Luckily, we have Ben, who just finished the book, to keep us honest. As far as a content warning goes, this probably lines up with the other Dresden books, right? There is some language, there is some sexual content. I guess it's not too severe though. Like it's pretty much off camera as far as sex, and there's not a ton of violence. It's more just like explosions and magical violence. Yeah.
Well, this part has one of the more explicit sex scenes. Like most of the other times, it's just like Harry ogling attractive women, but this time, him and another character do the deed quite extensively. A little bit of a higher warning there, but honestly, if you're reading these books, don't put it down for that reason.
Okay, good warning there. I didn't remember how explicit that was.
Yeah, that one, I remember that scene as a standout scene on content.
Josh is taking notes over there from Harry.
Harry's the man.
Okay, and then as far as kind of high level plot here, we have, like you said, the Denarians introduced. These are fallen angel characters. They are very cool and will continue to be a bit of an issue for Harry and the rest of the magical community. We have a crossover with the Red Court vampires, which is always fun. And there is also some intervention with the Knights. I guess the Knights of the Cross kind of go along with the Denarians because they're, enemies of each other. But once again, we have another Dresden Files book with several different characters that are all kind of coming together. That's what really makes Dresden fun for me. So if you're going into book 5, those are the groups that you can expect.
Yeah, and this kind of rounds out the cast of villains in Dresden Files, right? I mean, you definitely get more villains, more characters introduced that act as villains, but it was always the vampires, the fairies, and the Denarians were like the 3 recurring groups of villains, I think.
Yeah, you have more characters introduced from each of these groups, but like you said, Josh, these are kind of the main ones. We talked in the last episode about the way that the books, the series are structured. Like it seems like every 5th book is a Denarian book, and every 4th book is a fairy book, and every 3rd book is a vampire book. I think that kind of holds up. It's not 100% accurate, but as you go through the books, that's kind of what you can expect. I mean, obviously there are some prime numbers in there that don't really work, and then you have 12, which is 3 and 4. So how does that work? But there is a little bit of a structure, and so that's kind of a fun thing that he throws in.
It's kind of interesting that book 2 was about werewolves, right? Like that's kind of out of left field, and so I was kind of expecting more werewolf action at some point. So you're telling me that that's never like a thing again?
They more turn into minor recurring cast characters.
Yeah, I guess there was never an evil werewolf. There were people that figure out like how to use those shawls or whatever to temporarily make themselves. I guess that makes sense. So werewolves we're saying are good guys primarily here.
Yeah, my opinion on Dresden Files is the first couple books, he didn't really know where he was going. And then he started to pick up stride as he introduced more characters and realized, hey, I could cross over all these characters and have something really cool. And that's where the series really gets good. But I don't know. I mean, I've never heard him talk about this. I could be totally wrong. But it seems like he wrote a few books, had a good time with it, and then started to maybe retcon some of those things and tie it into a larger plot line.
Yeah, I think he said that he knew that there was always going to be a final trilogy that was more of an apocalyptic trilogy. So I think he's always had that in mind, and you do see the seeds of that being sown all the way back in book 1. But as far as the specific characters and how they interact, you're right. I think that he just was writing fun stories and then started crossing them over.
One thing I do think he did a really good job on was Harry as a character. Like Harry has stayed pretty consistent. I think he hasn't really had to go back and make Harry any different from book to book. That's not to say he hasn't progressed, but he's the same old Harry.
Yeah, and he's going to continue to progress in some pretty interesting ways as you go through the remainder of the book. So keep on reading. That's all I'll say for now.
I think as a series as a whole, it's really interesting because Harry, you're right. As a core person, he stays the same. But if you're to compare Harry where he is now in like the ending of the series to Harry at the beginning of the series, you can totally tell that there's been like a whole lot of growth. And the core has stayed the same, but he just does this amazing character growth with Harry throughout these books.
Yeah, see, I don't know if I've seen that. We're at book 5, and I feel like Harry has pretty much stayed the same.
Just wait till changes. Wait till you get to changes.
You don't even have to wait till changes. I mean, changes, a lot happens, but I think that he becomes a little bit more like responsible, and a little bit, he starts caring about his friends a little bit more. He starts letting people a little bit closer to him. I think that he has that growth throughout the series, even up till now.
Okay, well, now that you guys have hyped up changes for me, I'm preparing to be disappointed by it. So.
Changes is crazy, man.
Okay. Let's not spoil too many things here.
I think that's book 12.
Yeah, it's up there.
Oh, so I just have 6 more books to get through.
6 or 7, right? But yeah.
That's like one First Law book. That's like one Stormlight book. You're fine.
Okay, so let's talk book 5, Death Masks. If you've been listening up till now, we haven't done any spoilers, but now we are going to do that. We're not going to do any series spoilers. So only book 5 spoilers, as you've kind of heard Josh and I talk around any series spoilers. We will continue to do that. So the book starts at this Larry Fowler show. It's kind of like a Jerry Springer type atmosphere. It's what I've heard it compared to. And Harry's on this show to earn some money because once again, he's broke. He always starts off being broke. And he's on with his buddy Morty, who's he's not a necromancer, but he can talk to ghosts. Can't remember the name of what exactly he's called. But he's also on with Dr. Vincent, who is like a Vatican cardinal or something, some kind of Catholic high up, and Duke Ortega, who Harry immediately recognizes as a high up in the Red Court of Vampires. So once again, we're kind of thrown into the action with a bit of a one-off story here. Ortega challenges Harry to a duel. Father Vincent or Dr. Vincent tells Harry to help him find the Shroud of Turin. And Morty tells him that Susan is off in Brazil or somewhere in Latin America.
Portugal, I think.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Latin America.
Okay.
That's where all the Red Court is.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Anyway, so Harry gets kind of tasked to do a few things right away. And then everything gets blown up by Marcone, Gentleman Johnny Marcone's goons. So right away, I thought this was kind of a fun way to start the book because you're introduced to all of the players. You know what the stakes are right away. What did you guys think of the beginning?
Yeah, I really liked it as I was reading it. I was like, this just exemplifies why Dresden Files is so great. Is because it's combining all these really crazy magical things into some daytime TV. And I also think that Harry's grudge against technology really made this scene humorous when all the cameras are exploding, and that was pretty cool. I will say that at its root though, it was just a cool scene for an info dump. You know what I mean? That's what it was, which kind of cheapens it a little bit, but I still had fun with it.
I don't think it cheapens it. I mean, is it better to go down and have Bob spiel off stuff to you? I think that this was a fun way to do it.
I think he's grown as a writer in getting information across in exciting ways. But I really like this style of story where you start right in the middle of the action, and as a reader, you're kind of trying to figure out, and you're being told, but you don't get a ton of backstory. It's we always compare stuff to Brandon Sanderson, but he does a great job of doing this. At the very beginning of Way of Kings, you have an assassin running down a hallway and using magic in cool ways, and you don't have any backstory other than that. So you're figuring out as exciting things are happening. I love that type of story.
Yeah, and of course, Dresden Files, they have to do this too because each book is only, a fraction of what a Stormlight book is. So the action stays consistent from start through the rest of the book too, I think.
I also liked how it gave them an excuse as to why they couldn't just shoot each other. Because normally when all these characters meet, you're you should be fighting right now and not just talking. And now it's okay, well, we have to just talk because we were in front of a live studio audience. I thought that was pretty cool.
Until the Marcone people came and blew everything up.
So sometimes I forget how serious. I don't know how much do you think Marcone really wants Dresden dead? Throughout the series, I would always debate is he just doing this to test Dresden to see how good he is? Does he really want him dead? Is he what's Marcone's angle? What are you thinking right now, Ben?
Well, first of all, I didn't think that those were Marcone's cronies. I thought that it was discovered that they weren't, right?
I'm fairly certain they are. At least that's what it tells me on the Tor reread.
Dang, I thought that... No, I think that that's who Harry thinks that they were. And then he accuses Marcone of that, and it actually wasn't.
Remember this moment, listeners, and look for a Patreon video where I will probably go and correct this because I'm not sure. I thought they were Marcone's people, but regardless, some thugs are coming in and blowing up these talks. Before we go too far, I did want to ask, did you guys know what the Shroud of Turin was before reading this book?
Yeah, man.
You mean the bedsheet?
Yeah, I didn't know until reading this book. This is when I was able to associate that name.
Somebody needs to watch more History Channel stuff, Steven. It's primetime high school, before DVR, TiVo, you could go on and watch whatever you wanted. You just turned on the History Channel. I was always talking about the Shroud.
I could not place the name. I knew that this thing existed, I also think that this was his version of doing like a Da Vinci Code type book, where you have like this historical artifact that you're kind of chasing after. So I thought that was a cool twist.
A little bit, huh?
Yeah.
So for listeners who still don't know, it is the bed sheet, right? It was the cloth of sorts that was placed over Christ's body after he was crucified, and it's displayed in the Vatican somewhere now. What's the current status of it? Is it missing?
I'm not sure. I didn't think it was missing.
Okay, maybe I'm just too into this book and I assumed it was missing. We'll assume that it's in the Vatican somewhere. The church has it. So after this scene, he goes back home and meets up with Susan. And this is a surprise because he's just been told that Susan is off in Latin America. But here she is. And in his excitement and passion, he goes to kiss her. But because she is still part vampire, he's unable to. There's a bit of a negative feedback here coming from her. But she is able to give him a warning about the Red Court and the politics going on here because Ortega has challenged him to a duel, which he has accepted. You meet Martin, this really bland guy who's her bodyguard. He's kind of a mystery figure right now. And then Murphy, Karen Murphy, Ben's favorite police lieutenant, gives Harry a call about a corpse that has shown up. And Harry goes off on kind of the next leg of things where he investigates this corpse. You meet up with Waldo Butters, who will be a character going forward. He is this kind of timid, funny mortician guy. And this is an interesting corpse because it has died of like every plague possible. It's been hit with everything. So this person died a gruesome, horrible death. It's got all kinds of germs all over it. And it's also been cut apart.
Little known fact, it also had COVID. And that was the cause of death, was COVID.
Yeah, we're adding this death toll. We're adding this to the COVID toll.
That was the cause of death that's being counted for this death.
I think before this happens too, didn't he have a run-in with one of the Denarians?
That's right after. So right after this, he leads into Ursiel. I'm not going to be able to pronounce some of these names. I mean, just wait until I try to pronounce the sword's name. But I'm calling this one Ursiel, and this one was like a 6-legged bear thing with maybe some other animal parts. Really a weird visual, total demon type visual. It comes after Harry, but he is saved by Michael, Shiro, and Sonya, the 3 Knights of the Cross. We already know Michael, but now we're introduced to 2 more.
Yeah, and I think that this was probably one of my favorite decisions, is that these Knights of the Cross aren't just all Knight Templar type people. Like, you have Hero, what's his name?
Shiro.
Yeah, this like old Asian dude, like super cool. Harry thinks he's homeless at first, and then he just like whips out the sword, and so that was awesome. And then you have this Russian guy who's kind of mysterious, but really interesting that they're all just not like photocopies of Michael.
And they all have different religious backgrounds as well. Sonya is actually agnostic, even though I think he's seen one of the archangels. He's agnostic. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I thought you had to have a certain level of faith in order to use those swords.
Yeah, Sonya has an interesting background. He actually used to be, this is revealed later in the book, but he used to be a Denarian. He was possessed by one of the coins, and Shiro kind of turned him around and set him on his course. So maybe that's why he's able to wield the sword.
So he's had the negative power, but now he knows of the powers that are out there, so he can wield it.
Yeah, so it's like he knows what the powers are, but he doesn't necessarily see them as moral compasses. So I guess so his faith is in these larger powers existing, but he is going to do the best that he can for himself. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely butchering this. I'm trying to come up with something.
Yeah, but it is cool that Butcher's really able to get you into different headspaces of different individuals. And I think it expands the way that this magic system that he's creating works. Is there's a lot of different ways to access magic in Dresden Files.
So after they kill this Ursiel, a coin falls out of him. And we kind of already talked about this, but these coins are the denarii of silver that Judas was paid for betraying Christ. They now have a curse placed upon them where if a mortal interacts with them, they become a conduit for a fallen angel, which will slowly possess their body. So it's like this combination of mortal and immortal, and they have different appearances and magical powers, but they're really pretty terrifying and really my favorite enemies in Dresden, just because of how interesting they are.
It's also interesting because they are at their core human, the knights kind of refuse to kill them unless they find it like they have no other way, or they like know that the individual is like in his right mind and has decided to like completely turn to the demon or whatever. So it's like this really interesting moral dilemma for the knights as to whether or not they can kill these people.
Yeah, and we see that later on. So let's talk about that in a few scenes later.
Yeah, how haunting was that image too of Dresden when he soul casted that guy? Just saw this guy that was like crucified in a mountain or on a
Yeah, it was something like that. Something pretty creepy.
yeah.
And Josh did just say soul casted. It is actually soul gazed.
I'm
Soul
sorry.
casted is in a different series. So
Yeah. Okay, my bad.
Yeah, thanks for the Stormlight reference. At this point, we've all read so many series. In our minds, all these things are mashed up anyway, so what's the difference?
Exactly.
Okay, so now Harry goes back to Bob for info. It's a little bit of an info dump, but interesting that Bob is also scared of the Denarians, so you get an idea of how fierce, how serious these characters are. And there are a few character intros here. We get introduced to the Archive and her bodyguard, Kincaid. These are interesting characters. So the Archive is a 7-year-old girl that all of human memory is put into, right? I think there's another character like this somewhere out there in the fantasy world. I can't remember what.
Would it be Bran?
Yeah, the three-eyed raven.
Your
right?
favorite character in all of literature, Steven.
What? No, are you kidding me?
Absolutely not. Perfect ending for Bran in Game of Thrones.
Oh boy, I think we're just kidding here. Hopefully.
Nope. Completely serious.
All right, we'll take this one offline. Tell us why Josh is wrong on Discord, please, with that ice cold take.
I think another person he reminds me of is, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting this name? It was made into a Disney movie a couple years ago. It's like kind of a kid's book. She has like a younger brother that's kind of magical and knows like a lot about the universe. Wrinkle in Time. There you go.
Okay.
When I was reading the book, she reminded me of that character in Wrinkle in Time. The main character is little brother.
I didn't see that movie. I remember reading that book as a kid and not being able to get into it because it was a little too much for me. But maybe I should give it another shot.
It's a little out there, but has some cool ideas. Anyway, that's kind of out of left field.
So in this book, the Archive, yeah, she's a 7-year-old girl, and she's going to be the mediator in the upcoming duel. Her bodyguard, his name is Kincaid. I don't think we get too much from him in this book, although he will be someone that we see later on. And really, all they're here to do right now is kind of introduce themselves. They don't play a huge role in this book. And then, so after this intro, then Harry goes on to his next adventure, where he tries for the shroud, which he's located in a nearby ship. I can't remember the exact details here, but he encounters another Denarian, Deirdre, I think is how you say her name, and she's got like razor wire hair, and she kills one of the thieves. Dresden tricks her into taking a fake shroud, and then a thief by the name of Anna Valmont takes the real shroud.
Yeah, and I think that Harry is able to find the shroud because the priest that hired him to do the job had like a fiber of the shroud that he was able to like put a magical spell on to lead him there, which begs the question, like, why didn't he do that before or whatever? But yeah, he tracked it down, and that was still a cool scene, like fighting on a boat and kind of getting suckered in by a beautiful woman who ended up betraying him, but also saving his life at the same time. It was a fun scene.
If there's one thing Harry Dresden is going to do, it's going to be suckered by a beautiful woman. Not the first time.
His chivalry gets the best of him every time.
Yeah, it does. That's Dresden for you.
Call him a pig, but you know.
Yeah, a little controversial in some circles, but I would just take it as face value. It's pulpy. Just got to appreciate it for what it is. So after this, we get an intro into the Carpenter family. He goes to the Carpenter home. He meets Michael's wife, Charity, and his daughter, Molly, and his other children, who I don't remember the rest of their names, except there is a young boy named Harry, named after Harry Dresden. So, Josh, I know you're a big fan of the Carpenters. This was kind of a fun way to meet them, right? And Molly is maybe not what you'd expect after meeting Michael.
Yeah, right. You get Molly, who comes in dressed in a little bit more, was it like kind of gothic-y, right? She was kind of edgy, not what you'd expect from the son of a demon destroying, sword wielding BA that Michael is.
Or the daughter.
Daughter. I'm sorry. Daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Molly was a great character though, and the amount of times that she was able to make Dresden blush in one sitting was amazing.
So how old is she in this book?
I think she's like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
She was young.
But she's actually going to be a character to watch for as well. Right now, she's just like your stereotypical 2000s emo punk girl.
Yep. Like she would be walking off Hot Topic in the mall.
Yeah.
If you were to find her, this is pre-cell phones kind of. So you can either beep her or go look outside Hot Topic at the mall.
So Charity, Michael's wife, doesn't like Harry because she correctly thinks that Harry is always putting him in danger. Unfortunately, that's kind of the job for Michael. At this time, they also meet up with the other knights, and Shiro agrees to be Harry's second in the upcoming duel, and they go to Mac Annalise, I think. He's an Irish dude. He's got a pub that's like neutral ground.
Is this have we been there before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wanted to ask Ben this.
Oh yeah. We've been there since the first book. 13 tables, 13 fans, disrupting magical energy.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, we've been there quite a bit.
But I guess this was maybe one of the bigger times that they go there because they're doing some neutral ground negotiation for the duel, and Thomas is there and he agrees to be Ortega's second. We haven't seen Thomas for a couple books. He's the White Knight, or the White Court vampire that we saw in what was the third book, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and he kind of makes it clear that he's just expected to be there. He doesn't necessarily want to be the second. He just doesn't want to cause any waves right now.
Yeah, that's classic Thomas for you. All right, so after these little negotiations, these little peace talks, if you will, shout out book 16. After those are done, they go off to the art gallery scene. So they find out that the shroud is going to be sold at an art gallery because, of course, and for some reason, we don't know why yet, but Marcone is interested in buying this. Unfortunately, the Denarians are more interested in getting their hands on it. So they interrupt, three of them, including Nicodemus, is a very serious villain of Dresden Files. He's the leader of the Denarians. He wears a noose around his neck. It was the noose we're told it was the noose that Judas Iscariot was hung by, and he cannot be killed while he has the noose around his neck. In fact, in this scene, he takes several bullets to the chest and is unharmed. So what do you guys think of this portion?
I mean, I thought it was great. It's another like kind of gangster mob setup scene that has magical elements infused into it. And it also kind of lines up Harry's interest with Marcone's interest in terms of taking out Nicodemus. I thought it was a scene that was inconspicuous at the time, but had a lot of ramifications later on in the book, which are all scenes that end up being good.
I think that the introduction of this villain is really what made Dresden Files super compelling for me. Because up until now, the villains were a little bit just tropey.
Maybe a little more cookie cutter vanilla.
Yeah, they were all kind of tropey. Okay, you got vampires, you got all these just tropey villains. But then here's this guy that has a piece of silver from Judas and has the noose that Judas was hanged with that is being fought against, these people that are wielding a sword with the nail from Christ's cross. And it just brought Dresden Files into a whole new light for me and made me realize, dang, has some life to it and has some creativity to it that you don't get out of regular fantasy or urban fantasy.
Yeah, plus they're not even just fighting the knights. They're also fighting gangsters of Chicago and slick art thieves. So it's cool to see all these characters and interests come together, and they all have something that they each want.
And Susan is part of the fight as well. She's revealed to be totally OP at this point in her half vampire stage, and she has these tattoos, these mysterious tattoos that are kind of like flashing around on her skin. And the explanation is that she has joined this group that helps half-turned individuals of all sorts kind of control their powers. So she is powerful like a vampire, but is able to control it. So this is a nice resolution for Susan. I mean, originally we were thinking that she was kind of off in the deep end on her own, being forced to turn into a vampire, but she's done pretty well for herself. So unfortunately, it doesn't work out well for Harry. So the shroud is taken by Nicodemus, right? and Harry is captured. He's kidnapped. He is tempted with a coin. Nicodemus is trying to get him to take one of the Denarian coins. He turns it down. He's about to be killed, but Shiro shows up and makes a deal to take Harry's place, basically. And then Harry's let go. Susan picks him up, and that's kind of where we're at. It doesn't look great for our heroes at this point, with Shiro captured and the Shroud captured and everyone severely weakened. That's kind of how Dresden goes, though, right? Things go bad until they finally get resolved at the last minute.
Yeah, you definitely get like the entire hero's journey, just like every book in Dresden. You always start with some call to action, and then it always goes to where Dresden's at his lowest and gets a revelation, and then he kind of works his way back up. You could honestly just give like a class of high school students each a Dresden book, and they would each be able to, point out the hero's journey aspects of that book.
Yeah, I do think that this might be one of the first times that like Harry is absolutely rescued by somebody and not the one doing the rescuing. Like he's going to die, and then Shiro came in and saved him by sacrificing himself.
Yeah, and I have some thoughts on Shiro at the end once we kind of get to the resolution of the book. So from here, Harry and Susan get it on. Ben, Josh, you guys kind of said this was a more explicit scene, so watch for that if you are reading. But Harry makes a potion that allows him to withstand the effects of the red vampire stuff that Susan has going on. And after that night of passion, they are back at the Carpenters, regrouping with the remaining heroes. They get some more info on the Denarians from Father Forthill. And Anna, the thief, Anna Valmont, steals the Blue Beetle. Gasp. I mean, come on, that's messed up. The Blue Beetle, you can't take that.
She also has Harry's trench coat or overcoat.
Yeah, she has his duster.
Yeah.
It's like two signature things. What the heck?
Good thing she didn't take his hat.
That is an inside joke because Harry doesn't wear a hat, even though on the cover of every book, the artist likes to put hats on him.
Maybe she did take his hat.
Maybe that's what happened to the hat. But there's one other thing of note here is that Harry realizes that Father Vincent, the dude who hired him at the beginning, the guy from the Vatican, he realizes that that's actually Denarian that's posing as him because he sees a similar tattoo on Father Forthill's wrist that he saw on the body that was killed by every disease in the world, by COVID. And this leads to them confronting Vincent, putting him in a bad spot with the knights, confronting him that he is a Denarian. At that point, he relinquishes control of his coin and reverts to his human stage. His human name is Quintus Cassius. So I don't remember, but is he like super old? Is he a Roman dude who picked up this coin like millennia ago?
I think so, yeah. That was my understanding, at least.
I forget about that, but I do want to kind of revisit Father Forthill for a second. I thought it was cool to learn that he kind of had a past in fighting like a vampire. Like him and a group, like his posse, realized that there's a vampire. They went and killed him. He hadn't really gotten any magical things since then, but he does have that kind of background there. So that was cool for his character.
Yeah, it's nice to get more and more little tidbits on some of these minor characters, flesh them out. And I think Butcher does a good job of kind of doling those out in small amounts rather than doing too much of an info dump. That's an important part of telling a story. So after Cassius gives up his coin, the knights can no longer hurt him, but Harry sure can. And he does. I think he breaks both of his legs and pretty much tortures him for information. So maybe a little graphic here. But he reveals that Nicodemus is at O'Hare International Airport, which of course is in Chicago, huge airport. I've been there. And when I was there, I thought about this scene, thought about Dresden Files. So he's doing that because he's about to unleash a plague curse using the Shroud. So he's going to pass COVID-19 on to everyone.
Yeah. So I was really going on your little tangent about going to Chicago. I've been to Chicago before, but it was before I read Dresden. And when I was reading Dresden, I was like, dang, I just want to go back to Chicago. Because Chicago, they make it seem like a really cool city, which it is.
Yeah, I really want to do a Dresden tour of Chicago. Is there such a thing available? Listeners, please tell us if you know about a Dresden tour of Chicago. That would be awesome.
And if there isn't, then it's patented right now. No copies here. Also, one favorite thing, and I think that this really encapsulates Dresden Files, is after Harry like tortures him, he like tosses him in a corridor and like tells him to like that there's a payphone down the street, and then they're kind of walking away, and I think it's Michael that's like, you know that a call costs more than a quarter, and Harry's like, yeah, I know, and they all like bust up laughing. It's like this kind of douchey thing that Harry does, but like it's pretty funny at the same time, and
It's funny on a few levels because Harry also really wouldn't be expected to understand what a call costs because he would never use a payphone. It wouldn't work for him.
Yeah, and it's also funny because of the whole leaving coins things.
Yeah,
Yeah, and just like imagining like this guy crawling that has like two broken legs and he finally gets to the payphone and he tries to make a call and he doesn't have enough money. Oh
I mean
man,
that's some dark humor there, but
it's
it's
super
funny.
dark. Yeah, and it's funny that like that the knights, even though they didn't approve of his actions, quote unquote, they still like busted up laughing about it.
Right.
Just like classic Dresden Files right there.
One other thing on Chicago before we move off it, when I was in Chicago, true story, there was this news story as I was in my hotel kind of winding down for the night. There was this news story about a bunch of like teenagers or ruffians or something running around outside shooting off like bottle rockets at each other. And I was like, okay, this is it. These are not regular teenagers. These are vampires or wizards or something. They are fighting each other right now. And the news is reporting it wrong because this is how humans perceive everything that's happening in the Dresden Files. So I believe that Dresden is real and it's happening in Chicago. And Harry Dresden is really the savior of that city.
Fair enough, Steven. Fair enough.
So after the whole thing with this dude, the Snake Boy Denarian, I think that's what they nickname him, they go to Wrigley Field for the duel. So we go to another iconic place. This would be part of the tour. If you go on Phantology's tour of Chicago, this would, of course, be a landmark. You can see the duel between Harry and Ortega. The duel consists of like a battle of wills. It's kind of like a Harry Voldemort thing, pushing the Death Stone back and forth between them. And Ortega is winning until he starts insulting Harry's people Harry loves, which of course makes Harry win. And right as he's gaining an advantage, the whole thing falls apart, turns into a firefight. Ortega and the vampires break the accords, and Ortega himself is shot by Martin, who is Susan's bland partner. Ortega doesn't die, but he's injured here. And what do you guys think of the duel part? This was pretty fun. This was a scene that I remembered.
Yeah, I remembered the scene as well, and I really liked it. I really liked how it made it more realistic. Like, how many times are you really just going to let your honor kill you? And I think maybe Dresden would have, but like the fact is, if you have some scummy little guy, he's not going to like just say, "Oh yeah, I'll just die because I'm in this duel with you." It was all a setup so that they could kill Harry.
I'm gonna save my thoughts for this for WOBT. WOTB. There you go.
Yeah, keep on trying that. He's talking about Worst of the Best, which is the segment we do at the end where we talk about our favorite scenes, but the one thing in it that was kind of a negative. So it sounds like Ben has some thoughts there. We'll leave that until the end.
Fair enough. Yeah, I liked it though, and I do remember reading this and being like, yeah, of course he would have done that. And so I know Ben will probably come back with better reasons, but I like that scene and I thought it was fun.
So after this, they go off to the airport, to O'Hare Airport, to rescue Shiro and stop Nicodemus. Murphy has come in big with a bomb threat. She's called in a bomb threat to the entire airport to help out Dresden. I mean, she would not have done that a couple books ago. Her character and Dresden's character, their relationship has really come along. And Shiro, they find him in the chapel. He's tortured and barely alive. He's able to tell them Nicodemus's plan. And he also tells them that Nicodemus can't be injured or can't be killed while he's wearing the noose. And Nicodemus can choose one person every year to die, and that person's going to die. So he had picked Harry, but Shiro took his place. And then Shiro does die. So he sacrifices himself. And I read somewhere, I don't know if this is true or not, but that Shiro was inspired by Jim Butcher's martial arts instructor. So that's kind of fun. He wrote him in, and he's an awesome, very inspiring character.
I think Jim Butcher's like pretty into martial arts too, isn't he?
I'll believe it.
Yeah, that was a pretty emotional. We haven't had too many super emotional deaths, I don't think, in Dresden so far. I remember this one being the first time that I really felt like Dresden had stakes and that people that you really cared about could die.
What about Carrie Murphy's partner at the very beginning, man?
Dude, yeah, okay. No, nobody cared about him.
I cared about him. He had so much potential. He was like the Lassiter from Psych of the series, and then just boom.
No, he wasn't. No.
You're talking about Murphy's partner that the Loup Garou tore through in the
Yeah,
second
along
book?
with like half the police force. Anyway, and we should also throw in that there's this new guy at the police force, the special investigations unit, like named Raspberry or something. I forget his name. He has a fruity name though.
His name's Raspberry?
No, it's some fruity name though. I forget what it is, but he's like trying to sabotage the proceedings.
I remember this character.
it was hinted that he's going to be a bigger deal in the books to come. So I was hoping you guys would like know him, and like apparently not though. Apparently I'm way off on this.
No, you're not. What's his name? He's in the books later on too.
We'll have to cover that in my Patreon response video later on, or hop on Discord and tell us what this guy's name is. I don't remember his name, but sounds like we better watch out for Raspberry.
Well,
if you go on my tour, he will be a feature part.
the best character, I don't know if we're going to get to him or if we pass over him, but my favorite character that's introduced in this book is Butters.
Yeah, Butters is awesome. I did briefly mention him, but we didn't comment on him. Do you have stuff to say about him now?
Yeah, he's just wonderful. And he's also the same character as Woody from Psych, who is also the mortician in the TV show Psych, the critically acclaimed USA Network show.
Yeah, sounds like we're sponsored by Psych.
But honestly, if they already made a Dresden show, I know, but if they did another Dresden show, then I would want Woody from Psych to play Butters, because they are the same character.
I do picture Butters as more of a diminutive figure.
I don't care. They're like the same attitude. I feel like the same personality of just being like eccentric and
just totally unhinged.
And they're both like willing to go with whatever the crazy, either Sean and Psych or Harry and Dresden, like whatever they want to do. They're like, okay, I'll go along for the ride, I guess. Da-da-da.
Yeah, Butters has some really good scenes later on. So watch for those parts of different books. I don't know what book number they are, but he's going to be a good character. I think at this point, Butcher's really pretty much rounded out the cast. There may be a few more recurring cast members, but we're doing pretty well as far as main key players for the rest of the series.
We are. I think we're there. I can't think of any main characters that haven't been introduced yet.
Oh, actually, I can think of one.
Hold on. Surely there's somebody that takes up the sword that Shiro's left behind, right?
Surely there is, and we will see who that person is. The sword, yeah. So Shiro entrusts the sword. I'm going to call it Fidelicius. Fidacious. Really? Is that it?
I don't know.
There's a D, though. I don't know. Anyway, okay, Fidacious. Sure, there's fidelity in the name. It's a Latin name.
It's kind of like how Dresden needs a fiduciary to help manage his finances, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure what that is. Moving past that. Anyway, I did want to say there is one more character that we haven't met yet. No spoilers. I think I'm fine to say the character's name. The character's name is Mouse.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Oh, Mouse.
That's a big one.
Oh, Mouse.
That character's coming in a few books.
And you're telling me that there is not a future character named Cat? There's got to be if there's one named Mouse. I mean, come on.
You'll see.
That would be an interesting character relationship between Mouse and Cat.
All right, these are dumb jokes. Let's move on to the rest of the plot here. So the final confrontation happens on a train. Is the train moving? I can't remember.
The train is definitely moving, and this is just Mission Impossible right now. I mean, that's
fantastic.
That's what this scene is.
Mission Impossible / what are some other scenes where they're on top of trains? The latest Spider-Man, are they? Yeah, he gets up on top of the train. That was one of my favorite scenes from Spider-Man Far From Home. But that's always fun, and it always seems like people are able to run on top of trains really well. Solo, also in Solo, there's some top of train stuff. But so Marcone takes his helicopter over there. They confront Nicodemus, and a lot happens here to kind of go through it quickly. So Michael and Sonia are dispatched pretty quickly. Michael is shot a couple times in the chest, and it looks bad. Harry and Marcone are able to get the shroud away from Nicodemus, and Harry deduces that although Nicodemus can't be harmed in conventional ways, he can be choked by the noose that's around his neck. I thought that was brilliant because it's like, oh, this guy can't be injured as long as he's got the noose. But of course, the noose can hurt him because it can choke him. So that's what Harry does, and it works. And then everyone just kind of falls into the nearby river, and no one dies, but they get the shroud away, and we're kind of just left thinking, okay, this will continue in future books.
Yeah, and I thought it was cool that this was kind of the first time you see Marcone and Harry working actively together, and they make a pretty cool team, as well as Michael, who you would have thought would do more, but unfortunately he didn't. He did have a pretty cool mini sword fight with Nicodemus, so that was fun. But yeah, I remember being able to picture the scene happening very clearly, and it was exciting. And I thought it was cool, like you were saying, that the noose is kind of like what gives him his power and his one weakness. It's what makes him the classical glass cannon, where he's like super powerful, but also has like this weakness that can just be exploded really easily. So it was cool.
Yeah, and then wrapping up from here, so Michael's been shot in the chest, but he is okay because Charity reinforced his medieval armor with Kevlar. Yes, Kevlar is awesome. I first learned about Kevlar in one of the Artemis Fowl books. No spoilers for Artemis Fowl, but I think in the third book, Kevlar saves an important character's life. I love Artemis Fowl, man. We got to review more of those books.
Shout out to the movie coming up.
There's another good top of train scene in Artemis Fowl 2, the Arctic incident.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
This is the type of high quality content that people come here for.
that's right. Hey, we have people on Discord who love Artemis Fowl.
There's no hate. I mean, let's review the second one coming up here. But I also thought it was cool that Michael keeps on saying like that his faith will preserve him, because everybody's kind of giving him a hard time about like wearing this medieval armor, and then he's like, my faith and Kevlar will save me. So it was pretty fun.
It's like that scene in Lord of the Rings as well when Frodo gets stabbed by the cave troll when they're in the mines of Moria, and we think he's dead, but he's got on the mithril armor, and we learn there's more to this hobbit than meets the eye, as I think Aragorn says that, or Gandalf. That's a good scene. Same kind of idea.
And I think that it is interesting that Charity, she really shows how little trust she has in both kind of Michael's decision making and Harry's decision making, that she kind of went behind his back and did that, right? Like, I don't know if he knew that there was Kevlar in there.
Yeah, did he know? Did you know, Ben?
I don't think so.
I don't know. It's never explicitly said that he didn't know, but it does show that Charity kind of takes things into her own hands and is kind of a strong side character to Michael's character.
Yeah, she's a very strong character. She could have been written as just kind of like a boring housewife, but she is not. She is much more than that.
Yeah. Charity's awesome.
So Michael is fine. Everyone else is kind of fine, except for Shiro, who died. We already covered him. Few parting shots. So Marcone has the shroud. He wants the shroud for an actual noble reason. I don't think we know quite yet why, but in future books we'll find out. Harry lets him have it for 3 days, and then he says, okay, I want it back. It's hinted that this girl might be a daughter or some kind of relation, but we're not sure, and she's in a bad state. She's in a vegetative state. Let's see what else. Harry still has Fidelicus, and he's got to give it to someone. It seems like the war is also escalating quite a bit, because one of the parting shots of the novel is this satellite being taken down on top of Ortega's whole complex down in Latin America somewhere, maybe Brazil. And this is done by Ebenezer, Harry's mentor. So the wizards are really getting involved, and this is like real wizard magic. This is what is actually possible. And Harry's just kind of like tinkering around with small spells. But here we have a satellite coming down and doing some major damage. And then also the very last scene from the book is Harry is at the carpenter's place. He's watching little Harry Carpenter play, and Nicodemus drives by and throws a denarian coin in front of little Harry. Harry, of course, nobly grabs it before little Harry can touch it and join with the demon. But Harry himself has touched it, so this is bad, because we know skin-to-skin contact with these coins is going to be problematic. He, for now, buries it in concrete in his lab, but kind of dun here, because this could be bad.
Yeah, I thought that was super compelling. I loved it. You can go see my reaction video. This is kind of the first cliffhanger that we have in Dresden. And as kind of another parting shot, we learned that Shiro actually had terminal cancer. And so that was kind of a cool wrap up to his character.
Do you think that minimized his... This is kind of my worst of the best, was the ending of this book I loved, but I thought that two things. One is I thought that kind of lessened Shiro's sacrifice, that he was just going to die anyway. It was kind of like Dumbledore's sacrifice when he was already basically dead. And also my other part is I didn't know if Nicodemus was he throwing the coin, was he throwing that to Dresden or to Harry, the child Harry?
I'm pretty sure the child, because throwing it to Harry wouldn't do anything. Dresden's not going to pick it up.
Yeah, he's going for the gut reaction.
Yeah.
Toss it in front of the kids so that Harry is forced to like act quickly on it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. I guess what he's thinking is like either way, it's a win-win.
I didn't know if he was doing it as revenge to Michael, or to get Harry to take up the...
Well, he like winked at Harry as he drove off. And so I think he was like, gotcha. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I mean, throwing a coin is difficult, even for Nicodemus. I don't know if could he have thrown it with the precision required to know that, okay, this is going to tempt Harry Carpenter, but he's not going to he's not going to be able to react quick enough, and Harry Dresden's going to step in. Like, that's a tough shot.
Of all the crazy crap that happens in Dresden Files, you're worried about the coin flipping prowess.
Well, I'm trying to break down which character he was going for, and my point is I think he was just thinking it was a win-win either way. Okay. Either Harry Carpenter or Dresden was going to touch that thing, and he was going to get revenge.
So Steven's like closeness only counts in horseshoes and coin flipping.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough.
Okay, so Josh, that was your worst of the best. Did you have anything else there?
No, that was it. And we can go back to, do you guys think that weakened Shiro's sacrifice, or was it a compelling?
Yeah, response for Shiro, I see what you're saying, and I think it could have weakened his sacrifice a little bit. I think he's still an awesome character, and look, even though he sacrificed his life, he was still willing to go through torture at the hands of his sworn enemy, and give up his sword and everything. So that's more than just giving up your life. That's giving up your dignity. And I think that's a pretty strong sacrifice nonetheless. I think even more than that is important for the story, because this is the first time, like you guys were saying, that someone has actually stepped in front of Dresden and done something to solve the problem, and not just had Harry have to sacrifice himself. And so that's really going to help out Harry, because Harry doesn't have to feel the guilt and the weight of all of these things quite as much, because he realizes that Shiro did it for him and made that sacrifice and made that choice. And so he doesn't have to feel bad for his death quite as much.
Fair enough.
I think in terms of like plot, it also gave their reason to be like, this just kind of went unnoticed, or like there wasn't unnoticed, but there wasn't like a big effort to save Shiro. It was like the plot kind of progressed with them all having Shiro in the back of their minds, but like it was kind of a secondary plot line.
Like that could have been a whole plot of a whole Dresden Files book is, our friend got captured. Let's go save him.
Yeah. So I thought from a plot element wise, it kind of made it make sense a little bit more.
Okay, but yeah, Ben, did you have worst of the best as well?
Yeah, so my worst of the best was the duel, and it wasn't the scene. I loved the scene. I loved all the action, but I was looking forward to this duel so much at the very beginning, because it was like such high stakes, and we're going to see like Harry pitted against like one of the most powerful vampires, and I was just so let down by how fast it was, how we didn't really see very compelling action between those two characters. They were just kind of pushing against something with their wills. And it was just something I was looking forward to a lot from the very beginning of the book that was like so anticlimactic. Now, everything surrounding it was done really well. And that's kind of what makes it worst of the best. It was like, there's this part I was looking forward to that had great things surrounding it. But that actual interaction between those two, come on, they're just like pushing something against each other. And then, of course, he insults Harry's family and friends, and that's what gives Harry the power to like start winning. It was just kind of cliched and very anticlimactic to me.
So compared to the way that he was able to defeat Nicodemus, where there was an actual reason by pulling on the noose, you're like, okay, he just won because his will was stronger because of plot.
Right. Yeah. And because that's just, I guess, playing really well into Harry's strong suits. Like if you know anything about Harry, it's like he has great will, right? Like, so I don't even think that was necessarily smart for Ortega to choose that as like what he can defeat Harry with. Like, who has more will right now, Ortega or Harry? It just kind of, it seemed really weird and not very well thought through, and kind of brought down the whole scene for me a little bit.
Sometimes we do power rankings for longer series. Maybe we should start doing that for Dresden. We're not doing it today, but Ortega is definitely bottom power rankings. He did really bad.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And you're also like left with the thought that this guy's like basically immortal. Like he like got like half his body blown out with like a sniper, and his face shot, and he was pretty mortally wounded. And it seems like other vampires die relatively easily, but for some reason Ortega just doesn't.
He's older, he's more elder, maybe he's got more blood power built up, I don't know.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my worst of the best.
Okay, mine is a scene that's maybe not quite as memorable, not quite as explosive. After Harry talks to Bob, there is a scene with another type of spirit. I don't remember the name, but the spirit like inhabits a Cabbage Patch doll and has this kind of nebulous thing to say about Harry's impending death. It's this prophecy that's just given, and Harry dismisses it because he doesn't believe in prophecy much. And honestly, as a reader, I kind of did too. I was like, what is the point of this? This ties in nowhere else in this book. Maybe you think maybe it's going to have some significance later on, but it's this scene out of left field. I mean, they talk about Harry potentially having a death curse placed upon him by Nicodemus as well. So you're left thinking like, wait, did that fulfill it? What's going on here? And it was just a little too confusing for me. I mean, I'm not against prophecy and hints of future events, but I feel like they need to tie in a little bit more, especially when you're talking about the main character's potential death. So this was weird for me.
I think it was what prompted all the knights to tell Harry not to get involved, right? Was because they knew that this prophecy existed, but it had been like changed by somebody, right? To like not include the second part that Harry is for sure going to die, but like if he doesn't intervene, then like the whole world will die or something like that. There's some other aspect to it too that made it more essential to the plot, but also, yeah, kind of out of left field. I agree with you there.
And so Harry didn't die. What are we supposed to think as a reader? Where is this prophecy going?
The prophecy was that like Harry had been chosen to die, which was true.
Yeah. So I guess that's the case. Okay. Anything else from this book for you guys?
Nope. I liked it. I think that it's probably in my top 5 Dresden books for sure. I haven't come up with an official ranking in my head, but I thought it was a great book. It's one I remember fondly. And if I were just to go reread like certain books from the series, I think that this would definitely be one of them.
Careful, Josh. You're going to inspire a Twitter poll where it's just top 5 Dresden books.
That's the other thing I wanted to give a shout out to before this podcast ended was this Twitter poll that we have up and running.
Yeah, let me do a quick plug for that. And I will say once we finish the Dresden books, then yeah, you can definitely look forward to a top 5 Dresden books episode. That'll be fun. But yeah, we're doing a Twitter poll right now. It's had some good success. I think we have like 30 or 40 votes on our matchup today so far. And after our most recent fantasy news where we did our top 5 fantasy series of all time rankings, we extended that to people on Discord and Twitter and came up with a 16 team bracket. And every day there is a daily matchup. So follow us on Twitter and vote for your favorite choice of series, your favorite top 5. And we're going to do one matchup a day. It'll conclude probably about the end of May, and then we'll do a recap episode.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've been having a blast. We're open to doing more of these type things because it's fun for us. It's fun engagement with listeners, so we really like it.
And the first matchup, I won, so I moved on to the next round.
I thought you seeded yourself against some pretty good matchup. I, in fact, voted for not you, Stephen, for Towns. So
I was able to overcome Josh's vote and still pick up the victory. It was a close match for sure. But yeah, the seeding was about as random. I just tried to like split up different groups of people. So not all of the Phantology people were all together. But other than that, it was random. So yeah, if you like what we're doing, follow us on Phantology Books, check out our website, and maybe hop on Discord or support us on Patreon. Thanks, guys. We will catch up next time with the next Dresden book, Book 6. Ben, do you know what the name of Book 6 is? Is it Proven Guilty?
It is not Proven Guilty. It is...
Is it Blood Rites, maybe?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, Blood Rites. I think it's another vampire book. Sounds like a vampire book. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you later.
thanks, Steven.
See you soon.